What's up, gamers? Welcome back to Telesplash Gaming, and today we're taking a turn. I have my resident black belt and my good buddy Jesse with me today, because Jesse, what are we talking about?
Well, so a little conversation that comes up between Chris and I every once in a while is pro wrestling moves, the submissions, and whether or not they would actually work in a grappling scenario against a trained opponent.
It's still real to me, damn it!
So, if you've seen my Ric FLair impersonation, you know I don't know anything about pro wrestling. So Chris knows, he knows more about the pro wrestling moves, so he's going to be presenting us with some submissions, and we'll be working our way through them, see if they actually could work or not.
All right, cool. Check it out. All right, Jesse, you're in for a treat. We're going with a villain. We're going with the Camel Clutch, made famous by the Iron Sheik in the 80s and Sergeant Slaughter during the early 90s when he was trying to take down the US of A and Hulkamania. So, all right, Camel Clutch, Jesse, get on all fours. This is a bad position in not only just wrestling, but obviously in Jiu Jitsu. So here in Jiu Jitsu, you would normally put your post in here and try to start breaking them down, but the Camel Clutch, basically what they do is they set up and they basically flatten them out. So in Jiu Jitsu, you would flatten them out by getting both your hooks in and squeezing them, but we're just going to basically pretend like he's already flattened out. So flatten him out, and in the Camel Clutch, they do this weird setup where they grab the biceps and they lift up here. Now, okay, Jesse, tell me, will you tap out to this? Okay, so it's effective. So it is an effective submission, but Jesse, try to get out of it. Okay, so that, now I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna try to keep him in this position. The lower back is getting wrenched, but the thing is, I don't have a way to control his arms, so in real life, ready to go, I can't, yeah, okay, there we go. So Jesse, let's hear your assessment of that submission.
So I think, yeah, it's viable in the sense that if you could just completely overpower somebody and get there and you start cranking, I mean, if I were not able to escape it, that's pretty devastating. It's just a spine crank, so yeah, those are always pretty awful. It's pretty easy to kind of just spin real hard and force your way out of it.
So basically when Hulk Hogan was hulking up and lifted himself up off the mat, that was all, that wasn't necessary?
Precisely. Exactly.
Just turn real hard. Get back to the mat.
Oh, there we go, guys. Camel Clutch is effective if you have someone defenseless. But if anybody can get an arm free, you pretty much negates that. So Camel Clutch, cool, but not the greatest. All right. Next one is one of my personal favorites that I know is legit. We're gonna go with the Boston Crab. Now, I think even you've heard of the Boston Crab.
Yeah, it shows up every once in a blue moon. I think
good.
Recently there was somebody finished a fight with one.
You want to do it to me here? Since you know this one, I'll let Jesse do one of the few moves he knows.
So my understanding, here.
Yep.
Step turn them because they want to go belly down, right?
Yep, belly down.
And then we're just doing the old sit back, crank them.
Okay. Try that again. I'll try to get out. I'm gonna try to defend myself. So if you get it, which there's no way you're ever gonna just grab my legs and get this like this, but we'll work our way through here. So if you get this move and I'm locked in, let's say I get locked in, can I escape? The way they show in the movies and stuff is you sit up with this, you do a push-up in wrestling. So try to crank it on.
You do the, and like try to kick me.
So that is, okay, but now give it all you got. All right. Okay.
So we're
okay, so I think there is, so going to that, the way it felt is, yeah, my spine was gonna explode.
So on the spine.
Yeah, over here.
Was it like a...
on the spine, it definitely is effective. It sucked. When I started to defend it, he had to work harder to get it. So I think that's one of those gray areas where if you have someone that's pretty strong and big, they might be able to overpower your Boston Crab, but if you lock it in fully, then it's gonna be really hard to defend. Now, I think I'm gonna show how you would do this in real life, because you're typically not gonna grab someone's legs, step over, and be able to lock that in. The way I think I've seen it done in jiu-jitsu, and in, I think one fight maybe, one time, was a guy tried to get a triangle, which is a really good submission, and then they stepped over. So I'll let Jesse, okay, so the triangle is here. Now, this is a bad, I mean, I'm in trouble. But one of the big defenses here is to wrap, and I start stepping. So right here, instead of wrapping and defending, I'm gonna push this across, and I'm gonna basically get close to being choked out, but I'm gonna give everything I have. It's a big bump, and then you end up in this position. So what happened in the fight is the guy didn't let go of his lock, and he ended up getting tapped out. Maybe got his spine cracked. There was a couple things I read. One guy I think got injured in a wrestling match from that.
Yeah, and it's happened in jiu-jitsu competition too. Same scenario, and it actually, yeah, it'll break your spine. So
Boston Crab, I think, is really legit, especially if you set it up the right way. The way the wrestler set it up, not sure someone's gonna just lay there and let you grab their legs, but hey, all right.
yeah.
All right, next up we're going with the tried and true sleeper hold. This was made famous by a lot of people. I love Rowdy Roddy Piper. And let's say the sleeper hold is basically in jiu-jitsu a rear naked choke, but it's done a little different. So we're gonna show you the way they do it in pro wrestling for the most part, and then show you how to defend it as well as what's really the effective way. So essentially a sleeper hold is rear naked choke here. He does lock it up correctly with this, he laces, he rear naked choke grip, but here's where a lot of wrestlers, they go here on top of the head. This could be effective. I mean, honestly, if I can squeeze him to death, it's legit. Like, he's gonna go to sleep, 100%. But this hand right here, this left hand, is such an easy defend that I am now in trouble. Like, or he's still a little bit of trouble, but I'm gonna have to start fighting something else. So to truly do this in jiu-jitsu, you would lock it up here, and you hide this hand, either behind the head this way, or put your knuckles to the back of the head, and then you basically bring my elbows together and squeeze. Now he can pull my arm all he wants. There's nothing he can do. He's gonna go to sleep. So that's how you do it that way. Jesse, you got any kind of input on the RNC? That's a really basic, I mean, that's like day one, day two Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That is one of the most effective moves you see in MMA and combat sports in general, especially submissions. Yeah. So the sleeper hold is a legit move. Even with the hand on the head, I feel like it's still viable.
Well, yeah, and you see a lot of finishes like that. Well, at least in MMA, in jiu-jitsu competition, usually people are a little bit more aware of that.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're getting punched in the head and then somebody locks in a choke, it's, you know, it's
yeah. But yeah, if you're in trouble and they lock it in,
they'll put you to sleep.
Yep, it's a quick one. Okay, good. Well, that's easy. We'll move on to one that I already think is going to be a little bit lackluster. That's the Cobra Clutch.
Wait a minute, there it is! Cobra Clutch!
Which is a variation of the sleeper, I think, from, well, Sergeant Slaughter did the Cobra Clutch. I'm not sure who else did it, but the Cobra Clutch is a gift wrap, which is a jiu-jitsu move. You want me to do it to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Cobra Clutch, here we go. So the Cobra Clutch, he grabs a wrist, brings it through, locks it in. Now here is where it gets kind of funny. Brings the hand in behind the head, and then basically just rests the hand like on the shoulder here. He rests it like on this back shoulder while keeping this gift wrap. I mean, it looks kind of cool because you could, oh yeah, I got him, you're gonna die. Oh gosh, he's out. But really, I'm not putting enough pressure on either one of his arteries in his neck or his trachea, I feel like, to actually, I mean, I can crank him and it's gonna hurt, but like, I'm squeezing as hard as I can. And he's not doing anything. So I mean, I can squeeze this, that'll put a little pressure on him, but again, like, it's not, I don't know, I just don't feel a finish to this. Like, there's no gift wrap, bring that tight here. Even if I bring this all the way across, I just don't feel like the Cobra Clutch. I can do it to you. Yeah, tap out. You want some of this? Hulkamania's never gonna live. Anyway, yeah, the Cobra Clutch.
Yeah, like, you hit the nail on the head there, just not quite hitting the pressure that you need to actually, you know, either put me to sleep or get the windpipe crusher. Yeah, I mean, it's not comfortable by any means, and it's very effective as far as just holding somebody. I mean, I'm kind of stuck there until I can, you know, get my hand free. But yeah, as far as actually submitting me,
Okay.
I'm not gonna probably.
Don't use the Cobra Clutch.
Don't use the Cobra Clutch. Use the sleeper hold.
All right, moving on to Jesse's favorite. Woo! We're gonna do the figure 4 leg lock. Me personally, I don't think this is super effective, but after looking at it, I think there might be a viable way of making it work. So let's see. So the figure 4, obviously, there's a lot. The FLairs made it the most famous. So figure 4, they step in, they wrap here, they bring this one through. Now this is where I think it could be interesting. They drop this over, which nothing fancy here, but what the difference is, this ankle and foot is now exposed. Ric FLair usually drops back and he steps. Now this is where I think it's legit. This turns into a pretty good toe hold / ankle breaker. If I want to bring that down, I can basically, I'm not trying that hard, I can pop his ankle, I think, especially if I go closer to the toes. That is nasty. So obviously in wrestling, they don't want to hurt their opponents. They're really just getting into it. Oh yeah, you know, oh yeah, come on, come on. Oh. Even here, I can grab this ankle in Jiu Jitsu. I can grab this ankle and do a double ankle breaker and see which one he doesn't like the most. They both suck equally great. In wrestling though, to relieve pressure, they usually roll their stomach. So roll me over, Jesse, and see if this is actually a, and now usually,
Yeah, so once I get here, I'm all right.
but the person in wrestling, typically me, is going,
Okay. So
I don't feel any pressure. I feel like we just did something cool. Oh, now if you lean back, okay, a little bit of a calf slicer there. So now he's actually leaning back into me and creating pressure on my quad and my taint.
For me to really have anything, I would want to be like.
Okay, now he basically changed to a whole new move. But that's a black belt for you. He changed to a calf slicer.
So a little like, yeah, I actually, for me, I felt the most pressure. It attacked the ankles, but it was the tightest, like right here on the side of my shin, pulling down here. So it was a pretty hard, like kind of like side calf.
That could be a legit submission.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd set it up. That's in a fight. I honestly don't know at any point if you're here in this position. I'm going to kick in the face first off, so I got to be careful. I mean, I would have to really. The hard part is you can get an ankle. This happens in fights all the time. You grab an ankle, you drop down. I just don't know how I would come in here and woo, drop this. I mean, that's the part that we suck. I mean, I just don't know how I would set that up. I think there's too many moving parts to make it incredibly effective in a real scenario. But if somehow you're messing around and get it, it is a viable submission. It just doesn't seem amazingly. The setup is almost too rickety, I think, to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Figure 4, the finish is there. The setup is where you'd really have to figure out how to really set that up to make it effective. So
Yeah, it's a little long-winded. Like you said, there's a lot of parts there.
So I'm gonna give that submission the same score I give most of Jesse's ex-girlfriends, 5 out of 10.
Yeah, you had them all up. 5 is pretty solid.
That's We're moving on to the crippler crossface. Just a crossface move with a shoulder lock. Jesse, I think, knows how to do this one. It's fairly simple. You basically lock in here. You're gonna step. It's the one where you got my face across the front, and you're gonna step forward. Yep, this is it. It's a shoulder lock with a face crank. Now, oh yeah.
So we could, because this is kind of, I mean, it's along the lines of, it's kind of an omoplata, essentially. A shoulder lock, crank, or almost like that bicycle lock from sit outside control. And then just adding this pressure to it.
So there is.
So yeah, I mean,
It's that's
I could add this to it. This for just being a shithead and trying to
Yeah.
them.
So I mean, it sucks. And honestly, there's actually, my arm is getting kind of armbarred with his legs a little bit.
Yeah,
You
so
don't
I can
really see
pull-
that.
I
They
can
call
pull
it a
back
shoulder
here.
lock, but it's actually my elbow is gonna pop. Right there, yep. So that's actually like a bicycle lock in Jiu Jitsu and MMA. But again, like, I don't know why you'd go for a crossface unless you're just being a jerk, because here, when he's cross-facing, it hurts, but I'm not gonna tap to it, but he's just gonna sink that in my chin. Now, I'm gonna go to sleep. So that is, again, another move that is somewhat viable, I guess. Kind of surprised by some of these. They're not quite as wonky as I was expecting. I mean, I think the biggest thing between pro wrestling and submissions is, one of our other black belts just talked about it, was they got a lot of their submissions from catch wrestling, which is a real wrestling with submissions. And then they kind of add some flair and I think some theatrics to it. So again, I think the setups are where you're gonna have the most trouble, but the finish a lot of times is actually not terrible. I mean, Cobra Clutch, not real, but the Boston Crab, the figure 4 under the right circumstances, real. That crossface is not bad, but you get the right choke in there and you have that shoulder lock, it could be a really viable way to finish. So that's,
well, it's kind of, I look at it's kind of like a good old-fashioned, the old like full Nelson. It's like, it'd be pretty tough to really, you know, unless you're had them face down. I mean, I don't know, but if you just came up behind somebody, it'd be tough to really injure them. But you know, they're like this, and it can make it look scary, and the guy could you know, you could injure somebody with it for sure, but it's one of those that just it looks pretty bad for a little bit, you know, before it's going to be actually threatening.
I mean, like anything, I think if somebody gives you a certain position, there's almost any submission available for the most part. I mean, a lot of times when it comes to, I think, real submission grappling and fighting, it's setting up stuff. I mean, even in striking, you don't just throw an uppercut and hope it lands. You got to set it up. Same thing with grappling. You got to kind of set it up with other moves or transitions. So I think that's the biggest misconception is everybody says pro wrestling is fake. Well, no, it's staged. But really, if they wanted to hurt their opponent, some of these submissions really are viable submissions that would suck.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I like to make fun of it a lot, but there is something to be said about some of these wrestling holds.
Oh, 100%.
So, anything else, Jesse?
No.
All right. Well, I still recommend training in jiu-jitsu and the wrestling.
Don't just jump ship and start doing a bunch of pro wrestling. Do some jiu-jitsu still.
All right. Keep trolling. Keep rolling. We'll see you next time.